Hello everyone, El Spaniardo here. Now it is, where are we? The 7th of February 2024, and I've got a very important announcement for the members of a platform called MFS PMA. That's mfs-pma.com. All right. Now, in my opinion, there's been a whole host of shenanigans going over. Right. Now, in my opinion, there have been a whole host of shenanigans going on over at mfs-pma.com, not least the fact that on Friday last week, this is the 2nd of February, a guy called David Ayerst, right? Not David AO, right? David Ayerst, okay? This is David Ayerst. David Ayerst got in contact with all the members of MFS-PMA. Now, this raises a few questions. The fact that he emailed all the members when he is no longer working there must raise some questions as to how he got hold of all that data, why he was able to get hold of all that data, and what his intentions actually are. In his email, he wrote, "Hello, sorry for the email out of the blue. My name is David Ayerst, and I wanted to reach out regarding MF Solutions." Now, MF Solutions, just to stop things there, MF Solutions is a company owned by a guy called Matthew Peter Fantham. In fact, as I understand, it was also owned by Katrina Deacon, all right? Now, these were the two characters that went to set up mfspma.com. But when they set it up and launched it in 2022, August time, I believe, 2022, they had no bank account dedicated to the PMA, which I believe is a major violation. They had no independent bank account. In fact, unbeknownst to the members of MFS PMA, all funds being received into MFS PMA were actually being diverted into and through MF Solutions Limited, a company owned by Matthew Peter Fantham and Katrina Deacon. Matthew Peter Fantham and Katrina Deacon were the trustees of MFS PMA, and the membership of MFS PMA didn't even own the domain name of the website. And not only that, the data which was being input into the website was actually being diverted into and through MF Solutions Limited. Again, none of this was divulged to the members. So, that having now been placed on the table, okay, we fast forward and we have a situation where David Ayerst then writes, "Some of you may remember me from the short time I worked for MFS PMA. I joined in January 2023 and resigned a few months later when certain things came to light." Now, as I understand it, he didn't actually work directly for MFS PMA. The members of staff or the team over MFS PMA were actually contracted through MF Solutions Limited and then relayed their services or their alleged skills and intelligence and knowledge into the platform of MFS PMA. They made their knowledge and skill set available to members, right? So he was actually working for MF Solutions Limited, right? Contracted to MF Solutions, which in turn was contracted to provide services to MFS PMA. And as I understand it, in 2023, problems began to arise with regards to the delivery of certain services, and also there were financial issues, not least the fact that no full accounting has apparently ever been produced on behalf of the membership. And according to Matthew Peter Fantham, in his capacity as a director, a former director and owner of MF Solutions Limited, apparently the MFS PMA membership actually owes MF Solutions some £80,000. Quite how that is possible, I do not know. How is it possible for a membership paying for services which have been priced up and prices and services guaranteed by MF Solutions? How is it possible for the PMA to end up in debt, right? I don't know. But then apparently the PMA closed its doors because there was no one available to take over as trustee. Matthew Peter Fantham and Katrina Deacon had been the trustees, but the members were unhappy with the fact that Matthew and Katrina had been operating MF Solutions Limited, a commercial enterprise, which was supplying services to MFS PMA, and the members weren't happy that there was, there might be some kind of conflict of interest, and both were encouraged to step down, which they did. The problem is that for any other trustees coming on board, and I believe that one or two came on board temporarily, including an executive team, the problem that they encountered was that they had no control over any of the data. They couldn't communicate with members. They had no control over the website because all of this was being owned and controlled by MF Solutions. And as a consequence, and in absence of accounts being provided to any kind of management team, MFS PMA closed its doors. Now, what I want to do is I want to provide you with some remedies, and I mean some real remedies, as opposed to Mr. Ayerst's approach, which I'm going to finish reading out now, in which he claims to be offering you some remedies, but I suspect there's an alternate agenda at play here. So anyhow, let me just complete this email, okay? I joined in January 2023 and resigned a few months later when certain things came to light, although he doesn't state what those things are or were. I've now been reliably informed that MF Solutions is on the verge of folding, leaving many of you in serious financial trouble. I'm already assisting other ex-members, and if you have debt collectors chasing you, or your payment recoupment hasn't happened, or your mortgage hasn't been discharged, then I can maybe help you get back on your feet. The best part of all of this is that there are no upfront fees to pay. I won't charge you a penny until the results until the results you are looking for have been achieved. Come and join me on a Zoom meeting on Monday, the 5th of February. So this was a couple of nights ago, right? And he gave a Zoom link, which if you click that link, you'll notice that it actually is a Zoom account which relates back to David Ayerst's Zoom account or employment with Matrix Freedom. Okay, because that's correct. He is the kind of general manager or managing director, if you like, the senior head honcho at the moment, running operations in the UK, whilst Ian Clifford Stamp is on the run overseas. Okay, and I say on the run. Ian Clifford Stamp has left the country following his arrest in June 2023 by or at the instruction of the FCA, having had his assets frozen and stuff like that. And since we actually passed our private criminal investigation case files to the FCA in October, I think it was October the 23rd, actually, that went over to the FCA, Ian Stamp quickly left the country, okay? Make of that what you will. I believe, in my opinion, I believe he's trying to avoid arrest and prosecution, okay? But anyhow, so we move on to, or back to David Ayerst, who originally worked with Matrix Freedom, then left to join MFS PMA, and after a few months, he claims he left after certain things came to light. But he then went back to Matrix Freedom. And I know from my experience of, my unfortunate experience and encounters with Ian Stamp, I'm quite confident that Ian Stamp would never have re-employed someone who went to work for what he would have considered to be one of his competitors. So why did he welcome David Ayerst back? And did David Ayerst actually go to join MFS PMA in order to do something? I don't know what, but it seems strange to me that he suddenly has the database of MFS PMA and is able to email everyone in violation of data protection rules. Okay. He was able to email everyone on Friday last week, inviting them to some alleged private meeting. Now, at that meeting, David, he made some representations. He didn't say who he was acting for. He didn't even say who he was now working for. Well, I can confirm he works for Matrix Freedom. This is an email that recently went out to the Matrix Freedom membership. You'll notice that it's got David Ayerst written on it, okay? Look at the date, right? Look at the date of this email. David Ayerst is working for Matrix Freedom. So I believe this approach by David Ayerst was one of two things. Either there was an agenda to try to bring, or it's called grandfathering, I believe. He was attempting to grandfather people across, move them across, guide them across to Matrix Freedom, or he's doing something himself, okay? And he did allude to, not directly, but kind of indirectly, he did allude to having close ties with some of the prior team members of MFS PMA. The concern is that there have been a number of data protection violations here. In the first instance, MFS PMA was supposed to be in control of its own data, okay? It wasn't. That was controlled by MF Solutions. In my opinion, violation. The second thing is MF Solutions allowed, in some way, shape, or form, this data to fall into the hands of David Ayerst. Now, was that done deliberately? Are MF Solutions Limited working with Matrix Freedom, as I suspect? Or did David Ayerst acquire this data without the knowledge of MF Solutions Limited? Well, those are questions that need to be answered. In any event, there's a violation there. And also the approach by David Ayerst to the members of MFS PMA, which would have been without permission, because he wrote to everyone without prior permission. How could he gain permission unless it were all divulged up front when you joined MFS PMA? And so therefore, that approach was an illegal approach and was a violation of data protection regulations. Who knows what's happening with your data now that it seems to be passed around freely between members of Matrix Freedom, MF Solutions Limited, and MF Solutions Limited is now servicing an organization called Just Solutions PMA. And it's now come to light as a result of commentary from various members at that meeting that the members of MFS PMA have been grandfathered across to Just Solutions PMA. Now, who's working at Just Solutions PMA? Well, Just Solutions PMA is a PMA that's headed up by Matthew Fantham, funnily enough. But there are also some other characters there that used to work for and may still work for Matrix Freedom. I'm, of course, referring to Mr. Andrew Donald Jackman. Andrew Jackman is the guy that had your mortgage discharge process, okay, which didn't work over at Matrix Freedom. He's the guy that was running that service for MF Solutions Limited and is the same guy providing it for Just Solutions PMA. I hasten to add, there have been no results. Also working with Andrew Donald Jackman is a chap called Stephen Dewan. Now, Stephen Dewan, based in Dunstable, okay, Middle England, he's the guy that headed up the legal department over at Matrix Freedom, and he was responsible for threatening multiple members of Matrix Freedom when they were refusing to accept new services offered by Ian Stamp. All right. He was the guy responsible for all those threats and the paperwork, the pseudo quasi-legal paperwork that was being sent out to people. All right. Stephen Dewan. So he's the guy who's also working over at MF Solutions Limited, servicing Just Solutions PMA. Now, both Andy and Stephen are allegedly providing this debt, the debt eradication service, which is the same service and based on the same process that was being rolled out over at Matrix Freedom. Both the mortgage process and the debt process were both dispensed with by Ian Clifford Stamp because they didn't work, right? Yet they're both running that over at Just Solutions PMA. I just want you to know who you're being encouraged to deal with over at Just Solutions PMA in conjunction with MF Solutions Limited. So, just to recap, if you have any complaints whatsoever about your data being passed freely around amongst these people and these organizations, then you need to lodge a complaint with the Information Commissioner's Office, okay? Alternatively, you can actually file a claim, all right, for damages in accordance with the UK GDPR, and you can file that in the courts. And if you don't have much income available to you, check out Fee Remission EX160. Alternatively, online, that is known as Help with Fees. Even if you have an income, you can still get your court fees for free. All right. But I want to just enlighten the MFS PMA membership about some kind of recourse, because I myself, having looked at some of the information which has been provided by MF Solutions Limited, I'm very concerned. I would be very concerned if I were you about the lack of accountability and the lack of financial accounting. I'm also concerned that the trust was allowed to fail because there was no trustee available. And anyone who's familiar with equity will know that that is an impossibility, because in equity, a trust cannot fail for want of a trustee. Therefore, I would suggest perhaps that you make an application to Chancery and that you apply for a court-appointed trustee to take over the PMA and to also require a full accounting. That will answer all the questions and will hold those accountable, especially if people have misappropriated monies and or if funds have been ill-managed or negligently managed. It will give you a cause of action against those responsible, all right? Because trustees have duties. They have fiduciary duties. They owe fiduciary duties, and those funds should have been ring-fenced, not rolled into the accounts of a commercial operation known as MF Solutions Limited, okay? So I'm doing that for the members of MFS PMA, all right? We'll see about who really cares about people being injured and who doesn't really care about people being injured. But one final thing, David Ayerst, check him out. He's offering to help you out with debt. However, I have here a land registry search. And on that land registry search, he has approximately, in fact, I haven't actually counted these up, but he's got, where are we? It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's got 12 charging orders. So this is a guy who's offering to help you out with your debt and give you advice, but he seems incapable of handling his own debt. So just be very, very wary about these people. And when it comes down to the alleged success that Matrix Freedom have had with regards to discharging a mortgage and with regards to obtaining a payment recoupment check, let me point out two things. I've already exposed in an alternate video on the WhiteRabbitTrust YouTube channel, I've exposed the fact that the party he claims to have discharged a mortgage for has not had the mortgage discharged. Charmaine, who lives in Croydon, ex-member of staff of Matrix Freedom, is in court currently defending repossession claims. So if the mortgage had been discharged, she wouldn't be in court, would she? So the notion that that mortgage has been discharged is absolute baloney. It is a lie. Big surprise. So what we're talking about is that since the launch of Mortgage Free in 2019, Ian Stamp, who's now claiming to have had his first success some 5 years later, actually has still had no success. Let me make that clear. He has had no success. He is lying to you. Okay? If that's defamation, sue me, Ian. Go for it, mate. You've been threatening it for a couple of years. You still haven't done it. And the reason you haven't done it is because it's not defamation if it's true. You seem to not understand what's true and what's fiction. You don't seem to understand the difference. Making something up in your head is not real. Having a dream is not real, Ian, right? Wishful thinking is not necessarily real. And you haven't written off a mortgage. Now, there's one thing I want to point out about the recoupment check which Ian Stamp presents as his first success. He claims that the recoupment check, or the 1099 refund, which he claims to have obtained from the IRS, he claims that that check was payable to his client's trust account, right? In other words, Joe Blogg's trust. I'm going to prove to you, you can prove to yourselves that that's not the case. You see, Ian Stamp presents the picture of that check on his webinar. This is the webinar from the 27th of December 2023, in which he made his bold declarations. Here's the check. You'll notice about 2/3 of the way down that the IRS actually repeat the payee, and you'll see the name James Ogden. Now, there's no word trust following James Ogden. In other words, this was not paid to anyone's trust. It was not paid to anyone's trust account. It was paid to James Ogden. So far from sanitizing the check, Ian Stamp can't even get that basic function correct. He's left the name James Ogden on full view for everyone to look at. But here's another conundrum for you. You see, the IRS actually operates out of a place called Ogden. And when I was in banking and we used to make training courses and make training examples, we would make up names, right, of customers or clients. And what I'm suggesting, what I think is actually happening here, is I think that actually the name James Ogden is potentially a made up fictitious name by the IRS to show you what a sample check looks like. That's what I reckon it is. I think it's a bogus check. What makes me think that? Well, you see, having seen 1099 refund checks, the words tax refund would appear below the second James Ogden name 2/3 of the way down the check. And it would also state the year of the refund. And it may even include interest, which has been refunded as well for delays in refunds. So where's the words tax refund? They're not on that check, right? Which leads me to believe it isn't a refund check. So I'm going to leave that with people. I just want you to be aware, and certainly the members of MFS PMA, just be aware they don't have a mortgage success, and the refund check is highly questionable. Do your due diligence. Make sure you check out the people that you're dealing with, all right? If they've lied to you once, the chances are they'll lie to you again. Until next time, big love.